I was just putting a care package together for a certain Mr. Chickadee of YouTube. Who watches Mr. Chickadee on YouTube? Super cool channel. It's amazing what those guys have been able to accomplish on their homestead in just a pretty short while. Amazing timber framing, craftsmanship, woodworking type stuff. So they're developing their homestead, and he stopped by and left some comments on a couple of videos, and we got to talking about apples and stuff like that, and I'm sending him some apple stuff and some seeds and other stuff. So this is what I'm sending. These are two M111 rootstocks, and M111 is drought resistant, but it's also resistant to waterlogged soils, so it's kind of the best of both worlds there. It's also resistant to woolly aphid. Its downsides, it's not particularly precocious, so it can take a while to come into bearing, and it's real bad about burr knots. Now, burr knots are roots that form around where there was a bud or a shoot. If it gets cut off or damaged especially, it'll just want to grow roots, and it'll try to grow roots into the air, like right on the trunk. So the ways you can prevent that are to cut the buds out, like especially any bud that's going to be above ground, but better yet, plant all of the buds and all of the stem underground right up to the graft union. Now, it's okay to plant the graft union in the ground too, but it may grow roots that eventually dominate the M111 rootstock. So that could be, for better or worse, depending on the situation and who you ask. So a couple rootstocks there for this year anyway. These are scions. Now, these are all varieties that I would probably try to grow anywhere I went. Like say if I went to a new area, I would take these with me and try them out. But, there's no guarantee that they'll do well there. Here's Newton Pippin, King David, Ashmead's Colonel, Lady Williams, Williams Pride, Allen's Everlasting, Sweet 16, Golden Russet, all kinds of cool stuff. My own seedling Bite Me is in here, Rubinette. So these are just from my personal stash, stuff I save for projects. And if you don't have a use for them this year, don't feel bad about wasting them or anything like that. But remember, if you have a big apple tree, you can always just graft them onto there to hold them for another year, and then, cut them off and graft them somewhere else later. So these are intentionally cross-pollinated apple seeds. The parents are, in this one, Rubaiyat and Williams Pride, and in this one, Pink Parfait and Williams Pride. So Rubaiyat and Pink Parfait are both red-fleshed apples, but Williams Pride also has a tendency towards red flesh. Not as strongly, but it can be actually pretty strong, and it has the gene. I mean, the gene is there. By crossing, two red-fleshed apples, I'm hoping that trait will be reinforced, and also that the Williams Pride will donate some of its excellent genes of disease resistant. It's good with scab and fire blight. It's just a good grower all around, and it's an excellent apple at any season. So there's 4 seeds in each of these bags. So some seeds. These are all varieties that I've trialed out. I think they're good enough that these are the varieties that I grow for years and keep seed from. Bulgarian Giant, I have a whole video series on growing these seeds out and why this is awesome. It does need a really long season, like pretty much over winter, to grow the gigantic leeks that I grow here. And that may not be possible without protection, but it still makes a good short season leek too. It's a tall type, so you don't have a lot of dirt in the leaves, and the little bit there is, you can just usually rip a couple leaves off and have a huge long stalk to use without even having to wash it at all. Touchon carrot. I've trialed a lot of carrots to find this carrot, and it became my benchmark, and I kept testing stuff against it and finally just gave up because it always rose to the top. It's a very flavorful carrot, good texture. It lasts through the whole season and through the winter without becoming woody. It's a good one for storing in the ground. And the only other carrot I grow is Shinkuroda, a Japanese variety, which is more mild and crispy, with less terpenes, less of the carroty flavor compounds. Haugen melon. So this is a really good little melon. It's kind of more of the honeydew type of flavor. It makes really nice, 1 serving melons, usually maybe 1 or 2 servings, and it'll set multiple crops in this area anyway. Again, you have to, again, these are all things, if I moved to another state, I would take all of these things with me and try them, but there's no guarantee that they would perform. Ruby Streaks mustard is a red Mizuna, so it has a red-purple leaf, and it's just a really tasty mustard. It's really good in salads. It's good, briefly sauteed down and wilted in butter. And like all mustards, it bolts and goes to seed real easy, but it's a good thing to grow in the springtime and in the winter with cover. Bronze Beauty lettuce. This is a good, just all-around performing leaf lettuce. It's the arrowhead type, or oak leaf type, I guess they call it. It's also called bronze arrow. It's just a good all-around performing lettuce here, and it's very resilient, which is important in my climate. So, hailstone radish. It's kind of like a large salad radish, but instead of red, it's completely white, and it's more mild, almost more like a daikon or something like that. It occasionally suffers the same problem that other radishes do, like pithy centers and, pepper, like too much heat. But generally, it's a mild radish, more along the lines of daikon. And the coolest thing is the greens are really good. Like every other radish I've grown has hairy leaves, and these are absolutely like smooth and juicy and succulent. Really good in salads. Like I could see developing this variety into something that you grow just for greens, like, trying to develop a new variety that basically puts its resources into greens instead of roots. But overall, it's just a great radish too, so you get the radishes and the greens at the same time. Burgess's Buttercup. This is my favorite winter squash. I've tried a lot of different winter squash and got suckered into trialing them many times, where, I'm growing like 6 or more varieties and comparing them. And again, this became my benchmark, and it really just hasn't been beat. The only things that really have compared are Uncle David's Dakota Dessert, which is basically just a strain of Burgess's Buttercup, and Kubocha, which is also developed from Buttercup. Red Curry is really good too, and it's the same type of squash, which is a very sweet, dry-fleshed squash, and that's what I like in a winter squash. The only other one I would really consider growing that I grow occasionally is Burpee's Butterbush, which is a little butternut. So it's like a real small, 1 or 2 people serving butternut, and the vines are actually dwarfs, so they only grow out about maybe 4 or 5 feet. So it's really cool. You can keep it, retained to like a small garden bed. But anyway, Burgess's Buttercup for, a big trailing winter squash is just, it's pretty hard to beat so far. And some flower seeds. This is Oriental Poppy. It forms like a mound of vegetation that will come back every year and produce these amazing, huge red poppies. There could be some pink seed in here too, but I think it's mostly red. And it's just a really cool plant because once you get it started, it literally lasts for decades, and you can take cuttings off it and spread it around. Really cool flower. Now, even though Mr. Chickadee's joinery is so fine that he doesn't need glue, I'm sending him some of my high-grade high glue. This is, there's a video series of me making this stuff if you want to learn how to make it. And no, I'm not selling any more of it. I have kind of a personal stash for stuff like this and my personal use. In order to make any money or make it worthwhile, like you'd have to sell it for so much that it just doesn't really work out. So if you've never checked out these guys' channel, go check it out. It's really something else. Beautiful filmography, unique, interesting projects, and just a real commitment to craftsmanship and tradition and keeping old skills alive. I only wish I had the energy and health to do the kind and level of projects they're doing as far as building projects go. And I think that channel is it's just real inspiring. Like one of the things I try to do on my channel is just introduce people to more possibility. Like, so they go out in the world and they just see more possibility everywhere. And, what you can do with natural resources is just amazing. There's so many different paths to take and experiments to do and ways to innovate. Their channel is really along those lines as well. Just real inspiring that way to get people thinking, oh yeah, like this is possible, I could actually do this stuff. It's not just something someone else did in the past, or that, special people that write books about it do, or something like that. Which I think is one of the benefits of YouTube overall, along with the rapid dissemination of information and the cross-pollination that can take place between people, viewers and creators, and between different creators. So I'm real happy to, help those guys out with their homestead and developing their homestead in any way I can now and in the future. And one of the best ways to influence people is to influence other influencers who then go on to influence people. So, these are some of the things that I have my hands in that might be of interest to those guys.